Well, back in the 1920s and the 1930s, the Nazi ideologue Alfred Rosenberg concocted a brew of irrationalism and fascism, which he called the myth of the 20th century. And it was Nazi race science, genocide, and everything that goes with it. We are now in the presence of an effort by the United States government, by the Anglo-American finance elites, their allies, and the mass media that are really the most important aspect of the entire regime, to concoct something that can only be called the myth of the 21st century. It is the fantastic, absurd, contradictory, bankrupt, and discredited official account of 9/11. And this, I would submit, is the centerpiece of a new reign of terror. The essence of the Bush administration is fear, senseless, unreasoning fear, xenophobia, hatred of foreigners, pessimism, despair, and everything that goes with it. Now, naturally, it's not a coincidence that we find that Prescott Bush, the founder of this Klan, or one of the founders, turns out to have been implicated, first of all, in financing the Nazi seizure of power in 1933. Secondly, implicated in the administration of Auschwitz and other Nazi extermination camps. And thirdly, of course, in manufacturing the tanks and guns and bullets that were killing the Allied soldiers in Europe. We are confronted today by the attempt to confine the human spirit in a new prison house of the human mind. And we must not permit this to happen. The neocon ideologues and their allies in the mass media are busily concocting what I can only call a block universe. It is human history and world history transformed into a nightmare vision of a 50 years war, or an 80 years war, or 100 years war, or a 500 years war against this fleeting phantom that they call terrorism. Or actually what they really call it is terrorism. And of course, in that framework, any dissident, anybody who can think, probably read and write, can be labeled as a terrorist, and therefore as an enemy combatant and sent to the various concentration camps that are being prepared. It is an array of shackles and fetters on the human heart without precedent in recent history. It is the biggest lie of human history, unceasingly, unremittingly, mercilessly drummed into the minds of billions of people through the sense certainty Lockean images of the controlled corporate media. Well, they've also succeeded to some extent in splitting the intellectuals of the world. It used to be that there was something called the République des Lettres, that all intellectuals and people of goodwill and intellect and culture really belonged together, that there was a world of the mind that was above the nations and above the wars and petty quarrels. And they seem to have pretty much split the world along those ethnic divisions of Samuel Huntington's Clash of Civilizations. And they'd like the only dialogue to go on is among various people at the Council on Foreign Relations or the Royal Institute for International Affairs, talking about how to fight terrorism and how to wage new wars to exterminate third world countries and the like. Well, I think it is incumbent upon all persons of goodwill, of whatever your ideological direction, to rise up against this with, if you will, the pessimism of the intelligence, but above all with the optimism of the will, and that this is the way that we ought to proceed.